All right, guys, we're back here today with my 1993 Honda Civic. What I'm going to go after today is get the air conditioner working in this car. From what I've understood, that this car had the old refrigerant in it, refrigerant type, and that you had to buy a conversion kit so that you could put the new R134 into this system, that the hoses and stuff didn't made up anymore. I bought a conversion kit without even looking at it first because I knew that the system was empty. And I was going to put one on, and then lo and behold, on this low pressure line here, that is the R134 fitting. So either somebody's already done the conversion for this, or this came from factory, R134. I'm not exactly sure. So what I need to do is get the system charged up today. I did that the other day. I wasn't filming it, and once I got going, I realized that it's like, well, the compressor's not kicking on. And funny enough, you can see down right there, that is the compressor for the AC, and there's no belt on it. I never even had the belt on the thing, so I felt kind of silly after that. And then once I turned the car off, I heard a pretty significant leak coming from the Freon, and it was the high pressure hose here. I pulled it off, and of course the 2 cans of Freon I just put in it or I lost atmosphere. I wish that hadn't happened. I try to be a little more environmentally conscious than that, but it did happen. I pulled this off, and there was an O-ring missing on this fitting here, so I found one, put it in, put 1 can back in, and the system seems to be holding now. So the right thing to do is to take this somewhere, have them pull a vacuum on the whole system, and then charge it with the new R134, and hopefully you'll have cold AC again after that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go after I got the new belt. I'm going to put on the compressor here, show you how to do that. And then we're going to try to charge the system back up, see if the compressor kicks on, and hopefully it's blowing some nice cold air. Let me get set up, and I'm going to show you the next stage that we're going to have to do here. Okay, the first thing that's going to happen is the power steering pump belt has to come off, because the air compressor pump is behind that. So I need to get that off. It's pretty easy to do. You have on the back of the mounting for that, you loosen this 12mm bolt here, and then with this wing nut, as you spin it, it'll actually, the compressor will take the power steering pump will take the pressure off of the belt, and then we can just slip that off. We're going to get that right now. I don't think you have to take that all the way out. It just needs to be loose, and then as you turn the thumb screw, the wing nut, it should loosen that tension on the belt. Well, I'll tell you what, there's another nut down here I need to get. I'll show you that here in just a second. Okay, so the other nut is down here on the bottom. That's also 12mm. I'm just loosen that up, and then we're going to worry about getting the tension off of the belt and get it pulled off. Okay, with the tension off of this nut and that bottom one we just loosened up, and we're going to work with this wing nut. And as you screw it, you want the power steering pump to go down, and that's going to take your pressure, and you just will turn this counterclockwise to get that to happen. I'll come back when I have that finished. Okay, for to get the belt actually off now, I had the tension off of it. I did jack up this side of the right side of the car, or the driver's side of the car, and I, of course, put it on a jack stand. Always be safe, because this makes it much easier to reach up right there and get to where those pulleys are at. And I've already got that power steering pump belt off. So the next step is going to be our new AC compressor belt. And this one actually has an idler down there that I'm going to have to take that's actually what puts the tension on. I'm going to try to get up under the car and show you a little better what I'm talking about, but that's going to be our next step. Alright guys, I'm at a very odd angle. I'm laying flat on my back, looking straight back up. Okay, this is your balancer. This is the groove for the AC compressor belt here. This, of course, is your AC compressor here. And then that piece that's there is the idler pulley for the AC belt. Unfortunately, the way Honda has this car set up, it's a motor mount that's right here that belt has to go around. So what you have to do is you have to take these 2 bolts out of either side, drop that piece down, and then you have to wiggle the belt behind it to get it into the position where it's supposed to be. As you can see, I mean, I'm literally laying flat on my back and have no room at all to try to film this. So just to let you know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back when I'm finished and show you what I did. But this mount has to come loose. You leave all this here, and then it gives you a space above it where you can snake the belt in to get it above, because the belt has to go, it has to travel underneath this mount and then back around it, so it's in between everything. So I'm going to get that pulled off. I'm going to get that belt in positioned, and then I'm going to show you, I'm going to try my best to show you how to work that idler pulley to put the tensioner to put the tension back on the belt. Let me get that done. I'll come back when I'm finished. All right, as you can see, I have the cap off for that motor mount that went right here. And so that's going to give me access now to slip the belt over. So it's just a matter of that. That's how you need the belt to, it's going to run around like that. It's going to come over the compressor here, and then it's going to go over the idler pulley. I'm going to try, what I'm going to need to do is back up, get a wrench on there, see if I can get it on without too much trouble. And then I'll come back and see if there's any part of that I can redo and film to show you what I'm trying to do. So let me set that up and I'll be right back. All right, when I went to edit this, I realized that I lost the footage showing how the idler pulley for the belt goes up and down to put tension on it. There is a screw on top. See if I can show this to you down here. You see right in the dead center that 10 millimeter nut that sits on top of the idler or the tensioner there, and you can see as I back up where it's at. So what you need to do, this is the setup I used here. I have a 1/4 inch with a 10 millimeter on the back extensions, so it'll fit into that hole, as you can see here, and you can put it on top of that nut. And what you have to do, you loosen it up, and the tensioner falls down. And then after you get the belt back over the top, you just put the extension back on it, and you tighten that back up till you get the tension on your AC compressor belt. Okay, we'll get back to the video. All right, the problem is here, I can't get the camera far enough away to show you everything at once, so I'm going to show you what I just finished up doing. Okay, this is, of course, your AC compressor. It goes around the middle channel on the pulley, the balancer on the front, goes over the top, and then this is the idler back here, so it goes over the top of that and then back around the AC compressor. So the 14 millimeter nut that's on the front of that, I loosened that. We came in from the top and ran that the nut that puts the tension on it, took all the tension off to drop it down as low as we could, slipped the belt back over, reversed it, brought that pulley back up, and then I snugged down the 14 millimeter on the front there. So that's done. It's just going to be a matter of getting this piece back on here. It's not an issue at all. Just run those two nuts back in. We're going to put the power steering belt back on, and then we're going to charge the system and see if we got some nice cold AC coming out of this old tired 1993 Honda Civic. Okay, we have that motor mount back reattached, and I've already put the power steering pump is over the power steering pump pulley and the balancer on the front. And again, it's just a matter of putting tension on it with this wing nut here until you just got about until you just can't really turn it anymore. Then after I'm done with that, I'm going to tighten that one and that one back up, and that should be good to go for the power steering pump. We're going to come back when I get that finished up, and we're going to hook up the refrigerant and see if we can't charge the system. Okay, at the beginning of the video, I know I mentioned that I wasn't sure whether or not this system came with, from the factory, with R12 refrigerant or the newer R134a. And after some little bit of research, this definitely was a R12 car that had the old Freon in it, which has since been outlawed due to ozone layer getting ate by fluorocarbons and things like that. So it's illegal to actually use that in the system anymore. So what they did was they came out with the R134a, and the fittings for the AC to put that into your system are different than the R12. So what you have to do in these older cars is you have to get a conversion kit. They're not very expensive. All they do is they screw onto the existing R12 ports This is the low side, this is the high side. When I got this car, somebody had already had the conversion on just the low side, but now the high side. What I did was, as I came in here after we were done with the belt, and I used this setup that you see at most AutoZones and parts stores like that, the little cheap hose. It just fits on the top here. Turn the car on, shake the can up, open it up, and when I did that, you can see it has a pressure gauge on the front. My pressure gauge was spiked. It went all the way into red as high as it would go. So I knew we had a problem. That was not going to work for me. I'd already mentioned before that the system was completely empty, and I was hoping I could just maybe charge it with 2 cans and just get away with it. It might not be the best working AC, but it would be better than what I had, of course. So I've since changed my mind on that. And what I ended up doing was buying the correct tools to do that, to draw a vacuum on the system and to put the refrigerant in correctly. I'll back up and show you what I've got. Okay, what I did do is I got on to Amazon and I looked up to see what kind of prices I could get on a manifold gauge set and a vacuum pump. I got the price from them for the cheaper parts. This is not something I do for a living. These are tools that I will need every now and then, so I did not go all out, but I got both of these for around $100 total. I had talked to an AC place who was going to evacuate the system for me, vacuum it, do the vacuum test on it, and then fill it back up with the R134. They told me it was going to be about $150. So after some thought, I decided this is something I've wanted to have for a while now in my collection of tools. So I went ahead and elected to go ahead and purchase the gauge set. Now I'm going to demonstrate how to get that hooked up. It's not much to it. You have your yellow line off the middle goes to your vacuum pump over here on the side. You have, this is the low side is blue, and it has quick connects like that, and all you have to do is press it over the top and then you're hooked on. Same thing is going to go for the high side. Okay, so those are both ready to go. They have valves actually built in on these two, open and close. I'm going to make sure that both of those are open. Okay. Now with those two open, what I'm going to do is, let's see, go back to the top here. They have these valves on either side for the low and the high side. I'm also going to open up either one of these, both sides here. All right, I'm going to reposition the camera so make sure you get a good shot of what I'm doing now. Okay, this is all hooked up correctly now. Again, the yellow hose goes to your vacuum pump. The blue hose goes to your low side on the system, and of course the red hose goes to the high side. As you can see, everything is showing absolute zero. That's the pressure that's in the system. It's at atmosphere right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a vacuum on the system with my vacuum pump that is going to draw air out of this hose. It'll pull it out of the system on either side, and these gauges will go down. This one will actually bury itself, and this one has 4 minus. It has a gauge for the vacuum as well. So we're going to turn that on now. We're going to see how far I can get it down, and then we're going to let it sit at vacuum and make sure I don't have any leaks. I'll come back when that's done doing its thing. Okay, I've let that run for a little while, and you can see on the red gauge it's just buried against the pin, and on the blue gauge we're showing about -25, which is probably all that pump's going to be capable of. So the next step is going to be to close both sides of this system, and what that does is disconnects it from that center line. And then I'm going to turn my pump off. Now all I'm going to do is let the system sit like this for about 5 minutes. And when I come back, hopefully I'm still at -25. That would tell me that everything is still holding pressure and I'm good to go. I'll come back when I get that taken care of and show you the next step. Okay, it's been about 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll check our pump gauge again, and we're still showing -25. So I hope that's going to be a good sign that I don't have any leaks in the system, and that when I put the new refrigerant in, it's going to hold everything at pressure correctly. All right, since this system has been opened up all the way to atmosphere before, there's remnants of like old things that get out, like water and dampness that mixes in with the oils and things, and you want to get as much of that out of the system as you can. So what I'm going to do is actually open those two side valves back up with my pump running, and I'm going to let it run for about 30 or 45 minutes. After that's done, I'm going to call it good. I don't have any kind of way of testing it myself, but that should get all of the moisture and nastiness out of the system, and I'll be ready to recharge it. So I'm going to turn this back on. We're going to let the whole thing run for about 45 minutes. I'll come back when I'm ready to start putting the Freon in and show you the, I say Freon, the refrigerant, it's not Freon anymore. I'll show you the procedure for putting that back into the system. Okay, we're back now. I have already disconnected my vacuum hose. So our vacuum hose is now going to be the hose to put the refrigerant in. Also, if you were adding oil to the system, or if you were adding any kind of dye, so that way you could detect leaks later, you would also pour that directly into this hose here, and then you would attach the Freon can afterwards. So that way that can be put into the system like this. We're using this tool as well. Okay, and my kit came with this piece right here, which screws onto the top of the Freon can. It's got a needle in there that will pierce the top of it when I'm ready to do that. So this just screws down. It doesn't have to use a wrench or anything like that. And the next step with our yellow hose, we're just going to attach it to the side here. Okay, now with the manifold, but keep in mind that I still have the red and the blue sides are shut at the top. So so they're not going to let anything into the system until I open those two valves up on the side. So the first thing it's going to do is I need to get the air out of this line. So I'm going to start by piercing the top of the can. You hear it right there where it went through, made a noise. I'm holding the can upside down. And then at the top in the middle, all I'm going to do is loosen that fitting for the yellow line until I can start hearing Freon come out, maybe see a little bit of mist, and then I'm going to close it back down. Let's back it up with the camera, try to get you a better angle for that. Okay, so the Freon can or say Freon refrigerant, I'll try to get it right, is open. It's ready to start putting the refrigerant into the system, but the first thing I'm going to do is loosen that to let the air out of the system. Okay, once that happens, the next step is going to be to open up both the low side and the high side. And with that done, I'm going to crank the car up and turn the AC on full. Okay, before I crank the car up, one more thing I just wanted to mention. The compressor will not run until there's enough pressure in the system. Then once that pressure is reached, then the system tells the compressor to kick on. Then when the pressure gets too high, it tells the compressor to kick off. So there's a pressure switch in there that we're looking to trip when it gets enough refrigerant into it. And once that happens, the AC fan on the right side, as we're looking down, is going to come on, and you're going to actually see the compressor kick on and start spinning at the end. So let me get the car cranked up, and we'll see if we can get that to happen. Okay, the AC is on. The compressor is not running yet, so we're going to go ahead and start adding Freon into the system. It's got a sight window here that you can actually see the Freon going in. Okay, there, you just heard it, the compressor just kicked on. So I'm going to let this run until this 12-ounce can is out. I'm going to close everything back off. I'm going to add a second 12-ounce can. This system should take between 22 and 24 ounces. Once I have that achieved, I'll come back and show you where we're at. So again, I'm just waiting for this Freon can to empty. I'm going to switch it out, put a second one in. See my sight window, you can see the Freon moving toward here. All right, I'm done now. I have the yellow hose disconnected. I have both of these valves are closed. It still allows me to read the pressures inside the system. You see the low side showing 25 or so units, and the high side showing around 150. I don't know what those numbers mean. That's okay. I do know one thing. First time in a long time, there's cold air coming out of the vents in this car. Very cold air. So I'm very satisfied that at least I have it working now. And my hope is that I'm going to disconnect everything, run the car for a few days, and it's still going to maintain its the refrigerant and all, and I'm going to continue to have cold air coming out of this 27-year-old car. We'll back up, get everything turned off. I'll be back in just a second. Okay, I've disconnected the manifold gauge set and have the car off now, and I'm listening around all the fittings and all. I don't hear any air escaping from any part of the system, so hopefully that's going to hold. There's still nice cold air blowing out of the vent. I didn't measure it to see how cool it got down to. At this point, any cold air coming out of the vents is a vast improvement of what I've put up with for the last 2 years with this car. So I'm going to call this a win. Ready for some warm weather to come back up so I can try this out. At any rate, I appreciate you guys watching. I'll check you out on the next one.